Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Serena, and in today's video we're making vintage sleepwear. And since I've already done a video on this cute little baby doll outfit, which I will tag above, we're gonna go with something that's very classic and I think neutral as well. So if you're interested in seeing me sew up this project, go ahead and like and subscribe. Now let's get into the fabric and the pattern. For the pattern, I'm going to be using Simplicity 1325 size 12 bust 30. This is a classic pajama pattern, and usually I do view 2 for my Christmas pajama, but this time I want to try something new and use view 3 for the summer. Because the fabric I'm using is very lightweight, instead of doing the 2 large patch pockets on the bottom of the blouse, I'm going to do a small pocket at the top. And this is the fabric I'm using. It's a very thin, lightweight, almost sheer cotton with yellow roses on it. I'm starting off with the blouse, and to begin, I am just marking the fold line on the wrong side of the fabric so that way I can go ahead and press that over. Then I mark the shoulder darts, and if you're going to be adding a pocket, then I would go ahead and mark the pockets on the right side of the fabric because this is a patch pocket, so you want to make sure it lines up perfectly. Then I start pinning all of my darts, and then I take it over to the sewing machine to do as many steps in one sitting as possible before I get up and start pressing everything. I feel like pajamas and loungewear are often overlooked when it comes to vintage dressing and sewing, and while it's not really necessary, because I feel like a lot of people who dress vintage mainly dress vintage for their outward appearance and not necessarily to go to bed and things like that, because I definitely don't think it's necessary to participate in this niche way of dressing or this alternative way of dressing by having to dress vintage during the day and at night. But I can tell you a couple reasons why I've decided to implement vintage dressing into my all through the day life, whether it be outside of the house or inside of the house lounging or going to bed. So the things I'm about to mention only applies to me and my feelings towards myself with dressing in pajamas and has nothing to do with how I feel about other people, or I don't think that you should take my words and apply it to yourself, because I genuinely do not think about how other people decide to go to bed or lounge around their home. This is just how I feel about myself or felt about myself in the past. So in no particular order, this is reason 1 why I felt like it was necessary for me to start wearing vintage pajamas and loungewear. And the first reason is whenever I wear vintage, I truly felt like myself. I felt like I was honoring my personal style and I was making myself happy by dressing up, and it made me feel good. And I didn't want that feeling to end just because I was going to bed or I was laying around the house and had no need to get dressed up. And while yes, you can control whether or not you dress up in the house, but sometimes it just was too much effort to put on a full outfit for absolutely no reason. And I just didn't want that feeling to end. So to me, it was easier to switch my lounging wardrobe, because also when I would wake up in the morning dressed the way that I would like to see myself, it also felt good. On another note, one person that I truly admire, well, 2 people that I admire the most in the world are my grandparents, my grandma and my grandpa. And one staple, one thing about my grandfather that has always been super consistent in my whole life is the fact that he's always worn really nice matching pajamas. The material was always very thin and natural, kind of like what I'm working with today. And he would always wear a matching top and bottom. And he would never go to bed where his top and his bottom didn't match. It was like he went to bed looking put together and woke up put together. And for me, even though that has never been a requirement for me to just go to bed, that's definitely a tick that he has. Whenever I see a matching set, I always think about him, and I adore my grandparents, so it kind of makes me feel close to them when I'm wearing a matching pajama set, because I know it's something that my grandfather's also doing in real time, if that makes sense. The last reason before we get back to the sewing is I always feel put together and comfortable with the least amount of effort when I'm wearing a house coat, matching pajamas, baby doll set, you name it. I always feel comfortable and presentable at the same time. I can say there are times when I have been sick and I've been wearing my vintage pajamas, and just because I felt sick, I felt awful, and I was in the same clothes just laying around in bed for a whole day, that I still felt good, because when I got up to see myself, whether it's brushing my teeth or whatever it is that I'm doing, washing my hands at the mirror, I still felt pretty, or I don't know, I just felt good. Like there was some effort put in there, even though there was no effort because I was just wearing the clothes from the night before and I can barely walk around. And it's one thing that, like, whenever someone's sick and they've done all that they can do to recover, like for instance, they have to just wait it out at this point and they still feel awful, I always ask them, especially if it's a fashion person, I always be like, what kind of pajamas are you wearing? And they're just like, oh, I'm just wearing sweats or whatever. And I'm just like, invest in a nice pair of pajamas, because no, it's not going to take the sickness away, but it does make you just feel a little bit better. I don't know if it's just hopeful, or I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I'm sick, but at least my outfit's cute, even if I'm not. Let me know in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about or if you agree. Do you have special occasion pajamas? And again, the pajamas don't always have to be lacy and frilly and cute like lingerie. I think something like a classic cotton pajama is suitable, especially if it's in a print that you really like and it's comfortable. That's all that really matters. But I feel like a classic pajama like this is like the suit of the bedroom, if that makes sense. So now I'm adding the finishing touches on the top. This comes together really quickly, especially since I've done it so many times before. This is definitely one of my go-to patterns. So I am just sewing up the side seams of the collar. This pattern doesn't have like a separate neck facing, so you leave the raw edges open so that way you can press under the unnotched edge and like hem it down to cover the raw edges around the neckline. So you want to snip into the seam allowance on both sides. It's marked with a dot, and then you're only going to sew one side of the collar down like you see that I'm doing here, and I move part of it out of the way to make sure that I don't accidentally sew on top of it. And then I'm just going to press under that top part and hand sew it down to cover up the raw edge. And so here I am adding the little dash so that way I can sew past it without sewing on top. Fold over the facings right side together, then sew 5/8 of a seam allowance so that way you can cover most of the collar. And this also creates a notched collar as well. So yeah, super simple. And I love when the facing is built in because it makes it to where you have one less step of having to sew external facing onto your blouse. Now it's time for the chest pocket. I did go ahead and embroider it with a little S in a darker green, and I love how simple it was. I almost made the embroidery bigger, but I actually like how dainty and cute it is. It kind of reminds me of like a Ralph Lauren monogram pajama or something like that. It's just something so, I don't know, upscale about it being very simple and understated, so I decided to just keep it. All that's left to do on the blouse is to sew up the side seams and hem the lower part of the blouse as well as the sleeves. And I go with French seams throughout the entire blouse. I will link above my favorite seam finish videos and it'll show you in detail how to do a French seam. And the reason I do this for pajamas as opposed to any other seam finish is because French seams are very neat and durable, and because this is a pajama, it's probably going to get the most wear out of anything in my wardrobe, so it being durable is really important to me. Speaking of French seams, I also ease in my sleeves with a French seam, and to do this you have to leave, well, the easiest way to do it is to leave the side seams open, so that way you still treat the sleeve as you would any other by gathering the top, but you have more control over smoothing out those gathers as opposed to accidentally like putting tiny pleats in the shoulder. So yeah, I do everything the same. And then we move on to the shorts, which start off with a pleat at the front, and then there's darts in the back, which I am marking here. I do all of the same steps for the blouse as I do for the shorts. I French seam everything. That means all of the crotch seams, side seams, all of it. And then the upper like waistline is tucked into, the raw edges are tucked into the waistband, and then I top stitch the waistband on. So yeah, it's just a very neat, very clean application. This is how I always do it for my pajamas because they get the most wear in my wardrobe, and I really wear my pajamas. I'll wear them to bed, to lounge, or sometimes I just want to wear something really cute on the patio. As much as I love vintage pajamas and loungewear, it does take the back burner to my more exciting projects. So I do have to go out of my way to make sure that I make at least one or two per season, especially spring and summer, which is the most forgotten for me because it's the easiest to just like throw on a t-shirt and like go to bed. I'm finally filling that gap in my wardrobe and I love it. I love having options and always being prepared. Since we are nearing the end of the video, I would like to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please consider liking this video if you enjoyed it, subscribing to my channel, and sharing with someone you think might be interested. If you would like to support me any further, you can leave me a virtual tip over on Ko-fi or become a bobbin over on Patreon. All the links are down below. Special thanks to my bobbins over on Patreon. I truly appreciate your support and I look forward to reading all of your comments below. If you like to match your pajamas, what's your preferred outfit to wear to bed? Can you relate to wanting to look good all day long? Let me know down below. I am so looking forward to reading your thoughts. I made this set with my patio in mind because I thought it would be nice to sit out and lounge around. And really and truly, if I had the extra fabric, I would have made the long pants version too because we get mosquitoes real bad. But either way, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I think it looks really cute in my cute little yellow patio. I know I'll get a lot of wear out of this one, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye!